If you have not heard by now, it appears that the big, beautiful bill has passed in the House. And there was some hope there that Thomas Massie was going to be able to rally some of his Republican comrades to vote against that bill. But in the final hours, unfortunately, all of them caved except for one, and that is Fitzpatrick, that did not cave. So Thomas Massie and Fitzpatrick decided to vote against it. So first of all, kudos to Thomas Massie and Fitzpatrick for doing that. But something needs to be said. It turns out the reason why they decided to cave, or one of the reasons why, is because they really wanted to stick it to the Dems. I'm going to say this again. One of the reasons why those votes that Thomas Massie had decided to cave is because they really wanted to stick it to the Dems. They're willing to sell out your health, your life, just to say, ha ha, at the Democratic Party. That's how unserious these people are. Congress is like high school. This is absolutely ridiculous. They're willing to sell out their own constituents, and I say theirs for a reason, in order to stick it to the Democratic Party. What the hell is our government doing? Some of the things that this bill will do. Check this out.
My advice for Democrats is less hyperbole and more specifics on what people actually care about. Let me give you an example. Scott, you care a lot about the national park system. He's proposing a $1.2 billion cut to national park system. That's the most in the 109-year history of national parks. More specifically, 20 people are being laid off on the Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. 30% of Kentuckians are on Medicaid. 200,000 are going to be losing their Medicaid. 35 hospitals in Kentucky receive disproportionate Medicaid funding, and so they're going to be at risk. And 10% increase in utility bills Kentuckians are going to see. I think when you hear that, I think you're going to care a lot more than just hearing hyperbolic statements from Democrats. My advice for Democrats.
So that's a really good point that he brought up there. And it's what I've been trying to explain earlier on about this bill. The people that are going to be hit the most from this are voters in red states, not the voters in the blue states, because a lot of these policies, they're pushing it back to the states, right? So they're saying like, sorry, but if you make a certain amount of, if your state makes a certain amount of revenue or whatever, or uses this much amount of Medicaid, I went over the numbers before, then you're going to have to take care of that. The federal government isn't going to help you with this anymore. Okay, so the poorest states in this country are red states. It's not the blue states. What he said there about people that live in Kentucky, 100% true. People in Kentucky are going to suffer. So when I said Republican politicians voted against their own constituents, that's exactly what I'm talking about. When I talk about them cutting Medicaid, that is going to impact, again, predominantly red states. Rural hospitals is also going to take a hit. Is that going to be an issue in a place like where I live in Boston? No, that's going to be a problem in the red states. So that's who's going to be impacted the most by this bill. And I think, I don't know what to tell you about your representatives, but I can say this much. This is why I say you cannot trust a politician. At the end of the day, most of these people in Congress are going to do what works out best for their political career, even if that means turning their back on you and getting rid of your health insurance. Now, when it comes to the Medicaid, this is supposed to take effect in 2028. How convenient, right? How convenient. Notice it doesn't happen right away, a couple years down the road. So by that time, some people may forget that they even did this. At the same time, it almost makes you wonder if they're trying to help the Democratic Party. See, this is what I mean about these parties helping each other stay in power. Because for people who will remember this come 2028, they're probably going to be like, well, I'm going to vote for the Democrats. And then we just go back and forth and the pendulum just swings back and forth. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's not challenge to power. And people, when they go out and vote, they think that well, I'm going to vote for this party this time. I'm going to vote for that one this time. And they did this, so I'm going back over to this one and da-da-da. And at the end of the day, you're still not challenging power. And that's what I mean. Both parties keep the power in place. Neither party is challenging power. They'll challenge each other, but they're not going to challenge Big Pharma. They're not going to challenge Wall Street. They're definitely not going to challenge the military industrial complex. They keep it in place. And I want you to think about that when we see this clip from Hakeim Jeffries, because Hakeim Jeffries got on the floor trying to do this filibuster here. I think he spoke for about 8 hours, right? To push back against this. It's performative. It's theater. He already knew that the bill was going to pass. I'm telling everybody this over and over. He already knew the bill was going to pass. Is Hakeim Jeffries challenging power by challenging Donald Trump? No, because ultimately, when Donald Trump is no longer president and someone else gets into that seat, they're still going to keep Big Pharma, the MIC, and Wall Street in power. Listen to this.
Our House Republican colleagues, Mr. Speaker, have one last opportunity to join us as Democrats. Every single Democrat who's going to stand up and protect the health care of the American people. Stand up and protect the nutritional assistance of the American people. Stand up and protect our farmers. Stand up and protect our veterans. Stand up and protect the clean energy economy. Stand up to protect our public schools. Every single one of my House Republican colleagues have the opportunity now in this chamber, not the other chamber, in this chamber, to join us as Democrats and stand up for what is right.
Now, let me ask you a question. Peep the game. Did you see Hakeim Jeffries do this when Joe Biden kicked people off of Medicaid? Did you see him do this when Joe Biden kicked people off of SNAP? See, a lot of people didn't like to talk about that during that time because they were like, oh, don't say anything because it's the Democratic Party. But some of us in independent media were calling that out at that point in time. When Biden kicked people off, don't forget, after the pandemic, they made the announcement. Biden decided, okay, well, we're going to kick this many people off of Medicaid and this many people off of SNAP. Now, it's not as crazy as what's in this bill, but he still did it. Where was that same speech from Hakeim Jeffries then? Why wasn't he trying to protect people to keep their health insurance then? Because it was his party. This is the theater. When you know that something is already going to pass, they already got the votes, and then you say, well, I'm going to do this anyway, yada, yada, yada. If Hakeim Jeffries cared so much about people losing what they have, he would not have the donors that benefit from that happening. Hakeim Jeffries doesn't even support universal health care. I wonder why. And I would argue if we had universal health care, we may not have been in this situation today. Hakeim, number one priority is Israel. Takes a lot of money from Apac. One thing I guess I can say about Thomas Massie is that he doesn't take money from Apac. But Hakeim Jeffries is very corporate, and he has the donors that he have are some of the same donors that his Republican colleagues have in Congress as well. They all there to keep the status quo. And that's why they don't want you to get any Green Party members in. That's why they don't want you to get any who are the other ones? The PSL people in. That's why, and the independents that get in there end up caucusing with one of the two parties instead of holding a red line to maintain the status quo. So he'll be able to point back at this and say, look at me, I fought back against Donald Trump come midterms and come 2028. But don't forget, like I said before, you did not see this from him when Biden kicked people off Medicaid. That's how you know they're not really trying to challenge power. Then he said this crazy mess.
I got so many stories, I feel like I'm in a hip hop studio right now. I got so many stories, I feel like I'm in a hip hop studio right now.
Congress is high school. I feel like a lot of times, like we're sitting in an audience, like they're on stage. You know the saying, the world's a stage. I feel like that's what it is. Like we're the audience and they're just performing. And I say it because of this. What did I tell you when this bill was first mentioned? That if they really wanted to block this bill, that Senate Democrats and Chuck Schumer and Hakeim Jeffries, they know about this. Chuck Schumer could have blocked Donald Trump's bill in the Senate. We went through the whole article on the show. I'll be sure to link it when I do the clip. The whole article on the show that explained step by step how they could have blocked that bill in the Senate. It also said in that article that Chuck Schumer knew about it, but did not respond. That's how you know they're not really trying to challenge power. People at risk of losing their health care, all to play this partisan politics. And then I don't know why, but for some reason, I don't know who comes up with this stuff, man. Hakeim Jeffries thought this was a good idea. Let me get a picture of myself holding the baseball bat. Do you guys get what I mean when I say this is theater? This is not real life. This is a joke. It's theater. I don't know who is the Democrat strategist that thought this was a great idea. Who's coming up with this stuff, man? Where are they getting this mess from? This is why people laugh at the Democratic Party. And I've said this before. The Democratic Party can be so much better than it is. It chooses not to be. The Democratic Party can be free of corporate money. It can be a working class party. It can be a party, again, that stands for the everyday person, the way it used to be before PACs and super PACs and big money interests came in. The Democratic Party went the way of Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, military industrial complex, and never looked back. Theater. While people about to lose their health insurance. You talk about challenging power? How are you challenging power if you taking this much money from Apac? And hell, it's not even like he taking like 2,000. This mofo has taken over $1.7 million from Apac. You can't ignore that. He's not challenging power. He's establishing a political career. This was actually Track Apac's response to this tweet here. The DCCC said, Hakeim Jeffries is the leader America deserves. Remember they did this when Cory Booker had his filibuster? Remember that? Yeah, so Track Apac responded and said, no. You guys remember this Bugs Bunny? Yeah. So that's how I say, are they challenging power? That's what you need to ask yourself. But he's not alone, because I want to show you something else, okay? Maxine Waters also decided to get up there, and she's going to do a performance as well. And we're going to show you the real Maxine Waters after this. Watch this.
This big, ugly bill straps health care from 17 million Americans, shutters hospitals, and will starve 12 million people by taking away their food stamps. These cuts add up to $1.3 trillion, the exact cost of the tax cut Republicans are handing out to the richest 1% of Americans. But that's not all. The entire bill will add a whooping $3.3 trillion to our nation's $35 trillion debt. So much for Republicans being the party of fiscal responsibility. They're also gutting the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, an agency that returned $21 billion to families cheated by mega banks. They're cutting housing funds during an affordability crisis and weakening oversight of Wall Street. Maybe they're forgotten that the people elected them, not Trump or the billionaire class. And Mr. Speaker and members, it'll be a cold day in hell before we let Republicans get away with this. I yield back.
And scene. She won't tell you, of course, she supports billionaires. She supports corporate money. She takes corporate money. She won't tell you that. But I want to compare that to what she said to her own constituents a couple years ago. People forget about this, when she told the homeless people in her own district to go home. This is the real Maxine. This is why I say what you saw on that House floor was theater. Watch this.
Did they move another location where they're taking abs? Is there any more locations than this one?
No, it might have been. There's so many people out here.
1 minute. I want everybody to go home. And I want
We don't got no home. Okay. That's why we here. Miss McKinney, Miss Waters, what home we gonna go to?
just a moment.
It might have been some
Just a moment. Nothing is going to happen here today. Nothing is going to happen anymore today.
You see, that's the real Maxine. That was her telling her own constituents that they needed to go home, but they didn't have a home. They showed up there to get housing. That's why they were there. They were supposed to get those vouchers. That's why they were there. And she said, nothing's going to happen for you today. Some of us didn't forget.
But names.
What we're gonna, well, that's what give
Can you leave
That's why I'm here. And so I will be downtown with LASA. I will get the housing authority. That's why they came out here today. I made them come out here. And I'm gonna go.
And you need to know why they're failing, because Blanca Jimenez repeated, we gave her several meeting requests for you concerning this in LASA for years. And now they're sitting
There's
here.
nobody in Washington who works for their people in a harder than I do.
I believe you.
I don't want to hear that.
I believe you. So can we finish though? Work with me.
No.
Work with me so we can house people. That's what I'm doing.
I do every day.
What you do every day? I'm still on the damn
the
street.
money that you got
She's 7 years she doesn't pass out.
in Washington, D.C. I will continue to grow. I will continue to no more about
No more vouchers today. That's the real Maxine. You see the theater? That was under Biden's presidency. You see what I'm saying? Now, she said all that stuff in that speech about Wall Street and housing and all that jazz. But look at what she said to her own constituents. No vouchers for you today. Go home, homeless people. Nevertheless, that vote did happen in the House and that bill did pass. And I want you guys to see this here. Like I said, only 2 Republicans voted no, and that was Thomas Massey and Fitzpatrick. And you can see the rest here.
On this vote, the yeas are 218, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted.
They're chanting USA after kicking people off their health care.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
That bill is going to make its way to Donald Trump's desk, and he will sign it. To make things worse, JD Vance, who sometimes I have difficulty believing JD Vance went to Yale, because he just says the most stupidest things on social media. JD Vance brings it up here. I'm going to let you hear it from Blakely, who was just here recently. JD Vance admits that lawmakers switched their votes on the big, beautiful bill, kicking millions of their own voters off healthcare to own the libs. You guys see this? They think we're a joke. This is not a game. Let's go in here.
So all the right-wing influencers are celebrating on Twitter that they passed the big, beautiful bill. And of course they're celebrating. They're all super rich and they're all going to make a ton of money off of this massive wealth transfer. I also like that they admit that they will give up their own voters' healthcare to own the libs. JD Vance, that loser fucking troll, that actual creation of Peter Thiel and Silicon Valley, which that's why he was put there. That's why he was created and put in the position to be vice president. But some of you haven't learned that yet. Some of you think you fell for the cosplay to be like, just because somebody acts like they're working class means that they are. It's like, no, bro, you need to learn that this is all fake. It's all cosplay. He is George W. Bush and Dick Cheney just rebranded. He literally tweeted, oh, I had some GOP Congress members that were on the fence until they saw Hakeim Jeffrey's annoying speech and then they voted yes. First of all, you're totally making that up. This bill was always going to pass. Anybody who's like, oh, he was on the fence, he was like not sure. No, it was always going to pass. Why? Because the people that actually own this country, the real owners, as George Carlin said, of this country, were going to make sure it was going to pass. Because again, what this bill actually is a massive, massive wealth transfer to the top 1%. At the expense of children on SNAP, old folks in nursing homes, poor people on Medicaid. So what JD Vance is literally saying is we're kicking people that voted for us, our own people, off of healthcare to own the libs.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. And just more money to the rich as usual. So I don't care that JD Vance came from a working class background and he was poor at one point. And yeah, that motherfucker ain't poor now. I told you guys this before. I'm tired of hearing people's I used to be poor story. Blakely's right. That's why he's there. That's why these things are happening. So all of that was theater. And I think Chalmers Massey really did try, like, let me get those votes or whatever. But the speeches and all this stuff and the Senate, like, let's revise the bill and send it back to the House. That's all theater. I just hope more people wake up to see it. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.